Carol Malia and Chris Jackson.
Two of the North's top football clubs prepare to go public with a flotation on the stock market. It's second time around for Newcastle, who've tried issuing shares before. For Sunderland, it's a first. No such plans for Middlesbrough, who today spent £7 million on Italian striker Ravanelli. And high-tech expansion plans for a Teesside college, which has been accused of poaching other schools' pupils. Good evening. Two of the region's big football clubs, Sunderland and Newcastle, are drawing up plans to float on the stock exchange. This afternoon, both clubs have issued statements. Sunderland says it wants funding for future prosperity. Newcastle United says flotation is one of only several options, but a spokesman today confirmed the club has appointed city brokers. The fans are warning that the game must not be taken away from its roots. Chris Eakin has this report.
For football boards, this is a site to rekindle nightmares. Pile 'em high, sell 'em cheap was the philosophy. Newcastle was voting for an issue of millions of shares at £1 each. It was a disaster, totally aborted. Both Newcastle and Sunderland know it can go wrong. But both appear to need the money. Sunderland is about to build a new stadium. Newcastle, of course, says it wants to, a point which has dominated the headlines with the spectacular controversy of possibly moving out of the city. In Newcastle's case, figures are already being talked about. The Times newspaper says there would be a price tag of £160 million. It's not clear whether the story was printed with or without the club's blessing. Not a lot was being said by the club today. The fans made up for that.
At the moment, it's a struggle for North East supporters to actually save up enough money to buy the season ticket. And to start floating the club on the stock exchange is, again, taking it away from the working class fan.
Well, that's a comment made in the knowledge that a flotation now would not be like 1990. That was a share issue pitched directly at the fans. Balloons and black and white prospectuses did not work. Now the whole sales pitch for both clubs would be very different.
I think they would hope to get some money from the fans, but the main money is going to come from the financial institutions, from the markets generally, because the club's going to want to raise a substantial amount of money. So it will have to be a seriously good investment.
So, silly jackets on the terraces, the dealers mixing with the fans. And some look like they'd enjoy it, but how soon is not clear. Today's developments are not yet an actual deal. Sunderland's statement about flotation was made because Bob Murray has today been reappointed as chairman. Newcastle's news may have come out by accident. Both may wait for success on the pitch, which would bump up the price tag, making this place even livelier.
Well, Newcastle and Sunderland aren't trailblazing as such. Manchester United was floated several years ago. I'm joined live now by the BBC's North West sports correspondent Charles Lambert, who's based in Manchester. Charles, has it worked for Man U?
It has in the end. At the time there were one or two doubts about it. United went into their flotation in 1991, having lost money over the last few seasons, and initially the public didn't take up their full allocation of shares. But the vital thing for United was at the very same time as they floated, they managed to get things together on the field. They won in Europe, they won the League Championship, and all of a sudden people wanted to jump on board.
What sort of people invested?
Well, it was a combination of things. Ordinary supporters, around 10,000 of them invested from the word go, but United were always aiming higher than that. They were looking for the blue-chip city institutions to put big money in, and of course, they want their big money out. Now, among the investors is the BBC Pension Fund, but other corporations have been involved as well.
Well, Tottenham Hotspur almost crashed when they tried to float on the stock exchange. That's a word of warning, isn't it, for the clubs here?
Yes, absolutely. I think the lesson from Spurs is don't diversify. Spurs tried to use their flotation as an opportunity to go into other things. Manchester United have stayed firmly based in football activities, and they really have seen those spin off in a big way. In the last financial year, they made an annual profit of £20 million, and they're now generating huge sums through merchandising. I think what the supporters will be looking for is that clubs have to beware that they don't become simply a money-making exercise for their shareholders. The fine line for the directors is how to achieve that and still produce results on the field.
Charles, thank you very much indeed.
Now, despite what's going on at Newcastle and Sunderland, our other Premier League club, Middlesbrough, says it doesn't have any plans to go on the stock market at the moment. but it has gone on a spending spree. The borough announced today it has signed top Italian striker Fabrizio Ravanelli. At £7 million, it shatters the club's current transfer record. John Lawrence reports.
With his grey hair, Ravanelli looks well beyond his years, but the Italian is only 27 and has a reputation as a striker in Serie A, which is second to none. He scored 117 goals in 10 seasons and won his first Italian cap in 1994. Only injury prevented him from appearing in the Euro '96 games. His arrival at the Riverside Stadium marks another astonishing coup for borough manager Brian Robson. Not surprisingly, Middlesbrough fans are ecstatic.
Superb, fine player and signing for the future.
Well, I think it's a good buy, bringing a bit more class to the stadium, along with the other continental players.
Brilliant, absolutely smashing, isn't it? Middlesbrough International Football Club.
As long as he can gel with the team and...
was taken by Northumbria Police after discussions with both clubs. But the moves incensed both sets of supporters. Today they started a petition to get the ban lifted.
Rival fans chose the appropriately named Friendly Hotel at Bowden to launch their joint campaign. Although they may be deadly foes on the field, these Newcastle and Sunderland supporters are united on one thing. Both want away fans to be able to watch derby matches next season.
I believe it's absolutely scandalous. Our fans have been denied to go into the biggest two matches in the North East in the coming season. It's going to be the last derby game at Roker Park. They're the first two derbies in the Premiership, and they mean a lot to both fans of both sides. Without the rival fans being there, then the matches will not be the same.
We have the police saying that they can't police their own ground. I'm just so incensed that we have been banned from the derby game. I mean, it's our game. Let us get on with it and let us support our football clubs.
The first Premiership clash between the two sides is due to take place at Roker Park on September the 4th. The decision to ban away fans was taken by Northumbria Police after consulting both clubs. They're especially concerned about match safety at Roker Park, which has been granted a special exemption certificate to allow standing until the new stadium is built next year. They're adamant the ban will stay.
A very sensible decision was made by both clubs to bar away supporters for this season and this season only, and actually make facilities available at the opposite ground through live television for opposite supporters to enjoy the game. That was a very sensible decision. Nothing has changed since that decision was made, and therefore I see no reason why we should amend that decision.
The fans don't agree and will continue their fight to get the ban lifted.
There's been criticism today of the number of foreign players signing for the region's clubs.
Sport now, and with news of Le Crunch Rugby League match for Workington Town, the biggest ever sponsorship of Newcastle Race's premier winter event, and a soccer superdome for Darlington, here's Amanda Goodman. So just how can Darlington Football Club afford a soccer dome?
Well, the initial cost is very high, of course, but the club believe it could turn into a real money spinner for them. More on that later. First, though, Newcastle and Sunderland fans held a press conference today to launch an unprecedented alliance. It's part of a bid to overturn last month's decision to ban away supporters from the two big Tyne and Weir derbies at Roker Park and St James's. Both sets of supporters fear this season's ban sets a dangerous precedent for future derby games. Jim Knight reports.
There has been trouble between Newcastle and Sunderland supporters in the past. But unlike this pitch invasion in 1990, in most cases, say the supporters at least, the trouble's always been restricted to a minority of hooligans. On the whole, the rivalry, they say, has always been friendly rivalry. And so, at an appropriately chosen venue, opposing supporters and fanzine writers gathered today to express their outrage at being banned from each other's grounds. Black and white and red and white has never been in such harmony, united in a common goal.
By definition, the 1,000 or so Newcastle fans who would get tickets at Roker Park would be the ones who travel to every single match in the country without ever causing any trouble, without a blemish on their character. A decision like this doesn't tackle the real problem they think they've identified. It punishes the innocent and the most loyal, dedicated customers of the club.
I can only echo what Kevin said again. It's I'm being punished for something that I haven't done.
Petitions and letters are now being circulated, and the pressure to lift the ban is mounting.
So far, however, despite a recent representation from both clubs, Northumbria Police is still refusing to lift the ban.